All right, here we go. Touré, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Hey, man, appreciate, coming in last time and telling a bunch of very cool hip-hop stories.
Well, now you're here in New York.
Yep.
And yet you're still, why are you off camera if you're sitting right there? Because last time you were on, I was looking at a screen. Mm-hmm. You're in Cali. Now you're here. Can you show them? He's like right there. Like I can reach it. Like turn the camera and you'll see him like right there.
This is just the style, man. You know what it is? Is before VladTV, I was doing street DVDs. Kind of like smack DVDs and stuff like that. And because of finances and so forth, I'd be the one holding the camera and doing the interviews. Yeah. And that just became the style of what we do. So when the DVDs went to the internet, I kind of kept the same style. And then, and also I kind of feel like
a DVD on the internet.
Exactly. And I've always kind of felt like with Vlad TV, it's really about the person I'm interviewing. So you could dislike Vlad, but you could like the person who I'm interviewing and you'll still watch. I don't want it to be based on my personality.
Yes. The interview is inevitably shaped by the personality of the interviewer, even though I can dislike the interviewer and still feel like that was a good interview. That person was really interesting. Yep. I mean, the other person has to come to play.
Yep.
But you are always going to be different than Sway or Charlemagne or me or whoever.
Yep. And man, it's been working for us. So I'm not complaining.
No doubt.
So you, I feel, are most known for the R. Kelly interview.
Really?
I think so.
Really?
I think so.
I did Pac.
Yep.
I did a bunch with Jay-Z.
Yeah.
I did Lady Gaga. I did Jay-Z and Nas together. And I'm not even saying these things to brag. I just been in it for a while and I had a lot of nice situations. I mean, R. Kelly was controversial for many reasons. I'm kind of like, wow, it's still R. Kelly after all this time is number one on the list.
I think so. I think so because R. Kelly had sort of the strongest hot take. Describe teenagers. An answer that no one was expecting.
It's interesting because it aired once, never re-aired, does not really. I mean, you think the internet never forgets? This is just not. There's a piece of it that's out there, but the general is just not. It does not exist on the internet, which is bizarre.
You started to hear these rumors that R. Kelly has a videotape with him peeing on an underage girl, right? Yes. You started to hear it, and then VHS tapes started to circulate in all the, I was living in Oakland at the time, and at the Berkeley swap meet, a bunch of the vendors had these tapes for sale.
Well, Jim DeRogatis, I believe it is, I think he was at the Chicago Tribune at the time, some Chicago newspaper, a videotape just showed up at his place. I don't think he knows where it came from, which is kind of crazy. That's some movie shit. You don't usually think a video is anonymously dropped off at a reporter's house and suddenly it becomes... it was definitely like that. You heard a rumor that this thing exists, and then certain people in media started to get their hands on it.
Yeah.
And it was a pre-internet, pre-link, pre-viral culture. So you had to get the actual VHS tape to see this thing.
Yeah.
And it was spreading around, and certain people who worked in television or whatever would dub, I was at MTV. So if one person got it, it'd run off 10 in an hour and 10 of us had it and then we could trade it around. If you got it at a magazine, it might move through the ecosystem of the magazine a little more slowly. But I remember people talking about this tape. And then suddenly my man had it. And I was like, yo, you got to hook me up. And then he dubbed it and gave one to me.
Yeah, and the thing of it that people have to realize was that even having this tape was relatively dangerous because it was technically child pornography.
It was technically, yes.
Yeah, so if you got caught with this tape by the police, you could end up going to jail.
Yeah, you didn't want to brag. There was definitely a weird sort of provenance. Can I have this? Can I publicly own this thing? So people were very quiet about it. There's a prequel to all of this in that there was a VH1 Behind the Music in which Cheo Coker and some other journalists described after the show, R. Kelly is looking for, the gangliest, braces-wearing, knobby-kneed, underage-looking girl. Like there's, the girls are lined up outside his dressing room. Here's the buffet. You can pick any girl you want. Here's the beautiful, grown-up, full-figured girl. No, 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 no. I want her with the braces at the end of the line who like looks all shy and this was not this played on VH1 constantly, this discussion of R. Kelly looking for and nobody said anything.
Well,
and then R. Kelly did not demand they stop or cease and desist. The label did not say anything. So it's sort of like clearly they cannot argue the point, so they're just saying nothing.
Well, but even before then, there was the whole Aaliyah thing.
Yes. And the Aaliyah thing really blew up because my boss at MTV News, who was a serious news person, told me, call the Cook County clerk's office and ask them to mail you the marriage certificate. And I did. And we at MTV News at that time were the first ones to put out that marriage certificate. I know Vibe had it at about the same time, and I'm sure they got it independent of the way we got it. I'm not saying they took it from us, but we were on every day. We put out 3 times a day. So we were out, Vibe was monthly. So we put out that before, we broke that. Here's the marriage certificate with Aaliyah and R. Kelly. But that felt like they really loved each other.
How old was she at the time?
Far too young. Far
like
too
16
young.
or 15?
I think she was 16 and lied to say that she was 18, and he was like 26. So, I mean, below the age of consent, totally inappropriate. But I think the general feeling after R. Kelly and Aaliyah was known and then annulled, that it was like they just loved each other.
Yeah, I'm actually looking it up, and it says 15. She was 15 at the time of the wedding.
I mean, it's fucking crazy.
R. Kelly, so she lied and said she was 18?
Yeah.
He listed his age as 25.
But I think he's a little older than that.
Now the story that I heard, and I have no idea whether this is true or not, was that R. Kelly had gotten her pregnant and they needed to get married so he wouldn't get charged with statutory rape. You don't know anything about that?
I don't know anything.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, this is just a rumor. I have no idea. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward, the tape is out everywhere. Everyone has seen it. R. Kelly goes to trial and wins.
I mean, he gets off.
Well, I guess the girl in the tape got on the stand and said this is not her.
I don't remember specifically that happening or not happening.
Yeah, I remember that. That was actually one of the main reasons why he won, is because the girl in the tape saying that's not me. They had a bunch of her friends coming up and say it is her. I remember her hairstyle, this, that, and the third. But I heard that she got up on the stand and said that it wasn't her.
After it finished, BET made an effort, and I was pretty much the main interviewer at BET at that time. If there was going to be a serious interview, I was going to do it. And they made an effort to get R. Kelly to speak following this trial. It was sort of presented as sort of like a news sort of thing, not promoting a product, but like a special news. R. Kelly just finished this trial, which we've been talking about. Here we're going to have him talking about it. So we met in this Chicago hotel, really nice, fancy hotel. I remember everything was sort of white and it's a big, huge room. And he came with a crisis manager, this older white guy in a suit and very pressed and crinkled and proper. And they had asked to see our questions beforehand. And it was clearly a condition of the interview that we had to give them the questions. Now, the way I do an interview, I don't write out a group of questions and then read them off a piece of paper. We're having a conversation. Mm-hmm. So I was sort of like, this exercise of me giving you a list of questions is kind of futile because we're going to get into a conversation. I'm going to say a bunch of things that aren't on this paper. I'm not going to promise you that I'm only going to say things that are on this paper.
Right.
But, you have to have that conversation delicately because you don't want R. Kelly to walk out the room. I mean, they could just say, forget this, we're leaving. I mean, they clearly had the power until we started. Once you start, now the equation has totally changed.
Yeah.
And it's up in the air from that moment. So the moment I remember most is the moment that we've seen all over the internet. But there's a little bit more to it. I had planned out sort of like 3 questions that would really get to the heart of what you're all about and what you were trying to do in this moment. And I knew he's not going to say, yes, I like underage girls, but can we get to some resolution on this point at all? And I had been sort of talking about underage girls, and he'd been sort of like, no, 14, 13, that's disgusting. And I'm like, oh, you're going to try to slither out of this by saying underage equals, small children, and I don't do that. And I knew his sweet spot was a little bit older than that. So I asked him, and first of 3 questions, this is the softball. Number 1, do you like underage girls? That's an easy question. And his crisis manager jumped up and said, no, you can't ask him that. You can't ask him that. And R. Kelly said, nah, man, I got this. It's cool. I want to answer this. So the guy, okay. So he goes back and he sits down. I mean, you're the client. Here we go. So now, if you watch like Zapruder film closely, I start to say, do you like under it? But then at the last second, I'm like, he's gonna make underage to be 14, and I don't want to give him that out. So at the last second, I said, do you like teenage girls? So I started to say underage, but change. And this changes the question for him. He cannot get out as easily now when I'm saying, do you like teenage girls? And instead of saying no, because that is his truth, is yes, he said, what are you talking about? Because he couldn't just say no. He would just have to be a total liar to say no, but he couldn't. So he's like, define your terms. Like, what do you mean, teenager? What do you mean?
So what do you mean, teenager?
So now I'm like, what the fuck? You've stumbled over the first simple, easy question because you can't just say, no, that's crazy. That's inappropriate. No, it's like girls who, you want me to define teenage girls? Girls who are teenagers. and he's kind of given up the game already that he couldn't answer that first question. And I remember really feeling like, don't let him see on your face that he just completely fucked up. But clearly I failed because everybody in America for like a month after it aired was constantly like, oh my God, you're facing the R. Kelly. Oh my God, you're facing the R. Kelly. I couldn't walk down the block without somebody saying, oh my God, you're facing the R. Kelly interview. And I think I sort of visualized what a lot of people were thinking, like, Doc, are you kidding me? Like, what the fuck? You kind of just said yes. Like, what the fuck? And so he said, so he landed on, I have 19-year-old friends. But he said it in this sort of way that was kind of like, you're kind of admitting it because you're not personally able to say, no, that didn't happen. It was heavy. It was heavy.
Well, to play devil's advocate, 18 and 19 is 100% legal in every state. Right?
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it legal for a 30-year-old man to have sex with an 18-year-old girl?
I think it's legal for a 90-year-old man to have sex with an 18-year-old.
I understand that 21 to 90 doesn't make a difference. It's her age. I understand that. Look, I'm not a lawyer.
At 18, it is the age of consent everywhere in America.
Okay, but that's not what we all were talking about.
Well, I mean, he did say 19, which once again is.
Well, I think
you could be 100 and be sleeping with 19-year-olds.
I think that for me and for most of the country, the answer was not going to be coming out of his mouth. The answer was going to be coming out of everything else. And it is easier to lie with your mouth than it is to lie with your body. It's kind of hard. It's hard to lie with your body. And you can kind of lie with your posture, but it kind of comes out. But it's hard to lie with like the deeper things, like the tone and the way your face gets when you lie, and just the little things that human beings pick up on each other. And he, for all intents and purposes, communicated to us, yes. And I mean, and that's what people saw, and that's why all these years later, we're still talking about it and they're still watching it on the internet. It's kind of like every generation gets their own sort of hit on the R. Kelly tape, because I'll talk about it and then like 5 years will go by and it doesn't come up. And then like somebody new finds it, or finds it and it's new to them and it like gets its own new life. And then like, I get in the ecosystem of another show and they want to hear the R. Kelly story. And then their fans are like, oh my God. And it lives on and on and on, because it confirms something that a lot of us thought, but it confirms it at a deeper level than his actual words, which is kind of heavy to see and not normally what you normally see, I think.